Hello ladies, Melgen, and welcome to another Is It Worth the Gold video. And today we are looking at the 112, the premium tier 8 Chinese heavy tank. So is this thing worth the gold? No, it's not. Unless, and only unless you want to only play Chinese heavy tanks and never want to play Russian heavy tanks, then this thing is better than the IS-6. But at the moment, there's absolutely zero reasons to buy this tank over the IS-6. This is cheaper and it's better. So I don't see a single reason to buy this tank. Like, let's compare the armor. The armor on this tank is really good. Really good. Like, this is best armor overall on the tier 8 heavy tank, apart from this huge lower plate that is 120, and anything that has slightest clue of what's happening in this game is gonna shoot this, or is gonna shoot the cupolas if they can see it. So the tank's armor is really good and it can save it a lot, don't get me wrong, but when you engage at close range, which is the only way this gun works, is the armor is not gonna be that good. And yeah, if you stay all down, it's still gonna be alright, but if you want to stay all down, you have to play defensive, and that's not really what these tanks are good for, and you have to kind of rely on enemies actually pushing into you, which is not that common. If you look at the IS-6 armor is good enough to bounce like every tier 7, well not every, but most of the tier 7 guns, and most of the, well, all the lower tiers basically. And the turret armor is not that good obviously, but it can still troll people, it can still be decent enough, and the lower plate is not a weak spot at all on this tank. So this tank gets way better average armor, it has no glaring weak spots, it is really strong against guns like the 122mm with 175 penetration. There's like nothing you can do with this gun if you don't shoot gold at an IS-6. This is a weak spot, yeah, but is it big enough or is it weak enough? I'm not that sure. So let's compare the soft stats of these two tanks as well, because they're like the direct competition. So 112 is slower, it has worse power to weight ratio, and turn resistance is slightly better, as you can see, but only like really slightly. Apart from like medium terrain, it's kind of weird. Like it's quite a bit better than the IS-6 on medium terrain, but on soft it's equal, and on hard it's almost equal as well. And aiming circle spread way worse all over the board, which is really bad since they both tanks have same guns. And the another thing that this tank gets shafted in is rate of fire, which is probably the biggest grind I have with it. The gun depression is actually for a Chinese tank decent enough, but the biggest grind I have with the tank is that its rate of fire is way worse than on the IS-6, which makes this tank just not good enough. I mean, when you get in tier 9 games, you could argue, oh, the armor here can actually hold out, but when you get in tier 9 games, you can't really do shit anyways with your gun. Like, yeah, you can low heat, and where's the point? You're not gonna make any credits anyways. With an IS-6, you can flank, you can reliably do a lot of damage when you can pen your target. So flanking in an IS-6 is faster as well, so it's gonna work better in higher tier games as well. And in lower tier games, you're gonna deliver your shots faster, your armor is gonna be more reliable against lower tier targets. So I don't see a reason to buy this tank at all. Like, anything this thing can do, IS-6 can do better. Like, almost everything. So, and this costs more gold as well. But enough rambling, let's get into the replay.
Let's go.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying this tank is shit. It's just that there's not many reasons to buy it over an IS-6. IS-6 is cheaper and better in my opinion. And that's what I stand by. I mean, this tank, it just struggles to keep up with an IS-6. It's slower, it doesn't look so good, which is really important. The turret armor might be really good, but when do you really use it? I mean, this is the matchmaking you get half of the time with the tier 8 premiums. You are like one of the 5 tier 8s, this time even 2, which is really good for me. And you just basically shoot lower tiers. Or if you get higher tier matchmaking, you try to find the lower tiers to shoot, and then you shoot them. And in that kind of game, like, this gun doesn't really, like, it gets, what, 1 or even 1.5 seconds slow reload, which is quite a big difference with a premium tank, because you make money with premiums by doing damage, and when you do damage way slower than the IS-6, I just can't see how this tank can be called better than the IS-6. However, if you're really into Chinese heavy tanks, if you really need a crew, if they're like the only thing you're like, you want to grind to 113 and only play that tank all your life, and this is probably gonna do really good for you. I mean, it's a Chinese crew trainer, which is gonna help you a lot, and really that's the only reason why you get it. I mean, a tier 8 it's not a bad tank. I mean, the only bad tank at tier 8, in my opinion, is the super pushing from the premiums, and even the lava feels kind of competitive. Whatever, let's drop the rant and just talk about the 112 at the moment. So, it gets 1500 hit points, which is reasonably good, I guess. 45 kilometer top speed forwards, which you are never going to reach on the flat ground. Horsepower per ton ratio 12.61, which you saw already. View range 380 meters, which is really good for a tier 8 premium like this. Turret worth 26 degrees per second. And let's talk about the gun now. So 390 alpha damage, 175 penetration, basically it's KO1S gun. The difference here is that Heatrons have 250 millimeters penetration, which is gonna make betting like something like an E75 frontally really easy, or an IS-8 as well. Rate of fire 4.55 with the stock values. It gives reload without rammer around 13 seconds. You can get down to like 11, which is still really bad compared to an IS-6. And as you see in this game, I'm basically just driving forwards and taking my shots. There's not much involved in these kind of games. Like, you get a game where you're like one of the only tier 8s and you just drive forwards and you shoot things. You don't. There's not much involved in this. And the same goes for an IS-6. And I feel for this kind of gameplay, the IS-6 just outplays this tank, because how often do you get like those tier 9 games where you really need to put a lot of effort to win it in like an IS-6 or this tank? Not so often, and most of the games are going to be like this, where you just drive forwards and shoot things. I mean, it would be really sour for me to meet the other tier 8 heavies, because most of them are actually better than this, and most of them actually have armor, but then again, 175 penetration is going to be enough to pen almost every tank in the weak spot, so you don't even need that gold in tier 8 games. In tier 9 games, yeah, sure, IS-8 is one of the toughest tanks to pen. ST1, but the lower plate on that can be better. Like, IS-8 is probably the nastiest tank to deal with these kind of guns, because you can't pen it frontally with with this gun, and it is fast, so you can't really outflank it so easily. But then again, like ST1 and E75 obviously is really bad to deal with as well. And obviously KV-4. KV-4 is the bane of this tank. If you meet a KV-4 in an IS-6 or this thing, you're really salty about your life and you start to load gold ammo, because there's not much you can do with AP. Finishing off one of these ISs, I mean, I'm driving around the corner like this, it's never gonna be good, but I don't really have a choice here. So now one of the enemy tier 8s is coming after me. Can easily pen the lowest lower plate, especially when he's above you, like no problem at all. So another thing to note, the gas tank on this tank is in the lower plate, which does this a lot, and this is really common thing to happen. And now I kind of skip my shot and I get blocked by the IS behind me, so I get rammed for quite a bit of damage. I didn't want to take the shot because if I miss I'll lose a lot of health again with the lava shooting me, so I wanted to make sure that I pen, but I didn't have given the chance since the IS blocked me and the lava rammed me. Whatever, I guess that will do. But yeah, catching on fire in this tank, annoying as fuck. It happens a lot as well, so that is something to watch out for. And now the last enemies left. I don't really want to charge in, because if I turn my side towards the entire city there, I might get screwed, but for now I'm just gonna kill this tiger since I'm right in front of him. And here at this range I'm getting shot by a Hellcat, a Comet and a fucking VK. There's no way none of those can pen me, so I'm not even gonna bother to turn to face them. It doesn't really matter. Frontally they cannot pen me at this distance. They can hit the lower plate and they probably will pen it if they hit it, but it's so unlikely that I don't really want to bother with it. One thing I do want to bother is that SU. If that guy shoots me, I'm gonna be really salty about my life. Comet doesn't stay there and doesn't give me a shot, and there's the SU to my right. I don't really want to charge in, even though I probably should have played more aggressive, that would have gotten more damage here at the end. But this is just my instinct. You don't rush in when there's an SU to your side and 3 tanks in front of you, and you don't turn your side to all of them as well if they're all shooting you. So that was just, I probably should have went in since this is tier 8 and those are like tier 7s, but whatever, it doesn't really matter that much. Before I forget, the equipment that I use on this is rammer, gun leg, drive and merge stabs. The gun is really shit without it, so you can put it on. Yeah, in this game I would have done all this only better and even more with an IS-6, because it would shoot faster and I would reload faster and I would do more damage. And that is the difference it makes. I mean, this is the matchmaking you're gonna get half of the time, so you better do good in this matchmaking than spam your heat in the couple of tier 9 games you're gonna get. So here's the end plate. Prince credits like mad as all the tier 8 premiums. Ace Tanker, Sharpshooter, and some other tokens. A high caliber and steel ball as well. 4,609 damage down, 2 blind shots hit, 100% accuracy, 368 spotting damage as well. And way on top of the team. I mean, the tank is not bad. It's alright. I mean, it doesn't really differ that much from the IS-6, but when it does differ is the price. It's more expensive. It's Chinese, so it's less likely that you'll need a crew trainer for the Chinese, unless you really want to get the Chinese heavies. And its APM is lower, which is really important. And the overall armor on the IS-6 is basically the same. It's more reliable, but it doesn't perform at all against higher tier targets, which is alright. I can live with that. While this armor can be really frustrating when you get banned by lower tiers. Whatever. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. Is it worth the gold? Not really. If you want to buy a 112, buy an IS-6, and I will see you on the next one.